Operations Manager. Next slide, please. Thank you. Today's webinar is brought to us by HP Software today. Next slide. Rocky Pisto is going to be the moderator today. He will be here momentarily. I'm Stephanie Concoy, the Vivit Engagement Director. I will be here working behind the scenes, but wanted to jump in and welcome you all today. Rocky is a Vivit chapter leader and also a Vivit SIG leader for the BSM SIG. Our speakers today are Will Gillen, and Will is the Director for Systems Engineering for Fidelity Investment. Our second speaker today is Ian Bromhead. He is the Senior Product Marketing Manager for HP Software. Next slide. Just some housekeeping before we start. Today's live session is intended for all Vivit members. The recording will be posted in the webinar section on the Vivit website, which is visible for all members. Today's slide deck and webinar recording will be made available to you. We will send you the link via an email once both are posted to the Vivit website. If you have questions as we go along, please be sure to type them and send them in using the questions pane in the webinar control panel, which you can see on the next slide. And this control panel usually appears in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. To submit a question, make sure the questions pane is expanded and type in your question and click on send. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll pass it over to Ian.
Thank you, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to our webinar today. Thanks for spending the time to join this webinar, which is entitled Darwinian Evolution of Operations Manager. And we're going to talk about the evolving from the Operations Manager set of products to a more service-orientated approach, and we're going to kick that off today with our guest speaker that I'm delighted to have with us. So let's see if he's there and if we can hear him. Hello, Will. Are you there?
Hey, Ian. How you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, fine. Thank you. So yeah, let's move on and get started. The first thing I wanted to do is just give you a quick introduction before Will talks about the journey that he's led at Fidelity Investment. Darwinian evolution. So who is this? This is a picture of Darwin, and I think we all know that he was instrumental in defining the notions of natural selection and the survival of the fittest. He was an Englishman. He was educated in Edinburgh and, of course, spent a lot of time observing and studying biology and observing animals. And in fact, I think one of the aspects that we've seen over the last few months is well centralized in Geoffrey Moore's book, well-known expert in the electronics and IT domain, where he indicates, if you read his book, that great companies do tend to survive through innovation, through defining transformation, and that's what HP has been doing with software lately, and I think that's what will show to you that Fidelity Investment's been doing as well. But indeed, whether it comes to our software, whether it comes to Will's company services, then differentiation is important. It's almost vital to be able to survive in an ever-changing landscape. Alignment, focus, staying focused on what we're trying to do is key inside HP Software, trying to help our customers, such as Fidelity and many others, to be more efficient, to reduce costs, to gain productivity is very key in the Darwinian evolution of operations management. So I want first to give you some details of our brand new OM to OMI evolution program. And this is a program where what we're hoping to do is to give you the capability of evolving at your pace. There's no force function here, from something which you've probably been trusting and enjoying in your data center for many years, things like OM, Operations Manager, PI, OV Reporter, and many other things too that you might still be using. And I think you're probably still using to do consolidated event and performance management. And we believe that there are several questions that if we ask you these kinds of questions, are you satisfied with the availability of business services in particular? Are your operations as effective as they could be? And is your monitoring agile enough? You know, those questions are not necessarily terribly easy to answer. There may be some of those questions which are between the no and the yes. And we believe that we can help you to start to grow your service capabilities and evolve your IT monitoring strategy. Along this line here, we're showing some of the steps that we believe and we've documented with best practices and return on experience of our customers, such as Fidelity. So moving from the classical consolidated event performance management through service-driven operations bridge, and eventually on the way to analytics-driven operations bridge, is something that we believe and that we are measuring is one of the most effective ways of actually getting some of the answers to those questions and answering every one of them yes as you move down the journey. And so yes, we have designed a new program. OM to Operations Bridge Evolution program is about to kick off, and in it we're providing a lot of entitlement to people. So people who are using today and are trusting and enjoying Operations Manager, PI, Reporter, are probably doing consolidated event and performance management therefore. And what we're going to be starting with in this program on the 1st of March is that you will gain entitlement on a one-on-one basis. So from OM to LMI, from PI to SHR, from the SPIs to the management pack, you're going to get one-on-one entitlement, which we think is a great offer. In particular, when you look at what are you gaining as you define your journey and moving towards a bridge approach, you're gaining in your capability to manage and be capable of managing services, so having a service-driven approach. We believe that by integrating a lot of the data from the tools you've already chosen, be they from HP or others, can be combined into a single platform. We'll talk more about what that platform is and how we think it provides value after Will has talked about his journey. We want to define the ways in which you can really gain efficiency. And a lot of our customers who have deployed the bridge have seen immense reductions in the event volumes, have been able to enjoy the dynamic nature of finding root causes by sorting out the wheat from the chaff and using the service model that we have inside the bridge. And we'll talk more about that as well. So you'll be entitled, if you're an owner of Operations Manager, to the Operations Bridge Premium Edition. And you'll have also the capability to move from that platform if you're attracted to anything on the right-hand side. So if you need things like log intelligence, analysis of your log files, centralization, collection, and storage of them, then that's built into our Operations Bridge Ultimate. If you need and want to move towards being more proactive and getting the capability of predicting things before service outage, then we're bundling into our OpsBridge Ultimate that capability. If you believe that you can drive down operational efficiency, and we believe that you can, and our own IT is doing so, by applying various different types of automation, monitoring automation, and of course automated remediation, execution of standard best practices to help IT operators out when they're focused on other things or when there are too many things to do. So there's a lot of value in the entitlement itself, and it defines a path to a much stronger offering. Now, you wouldn't be alone in that journey. We've actually designed this program based on work we've done over the last year or more with quite a few customers across the world in an invitation process. You can see some of their feedback here. Some of these are household names, GE, KMD, Schlumberger are well known, and you can see some of their feedback is really encouraging. GE, in fact, has done so well in their evolution from OM to OMI that they've actually switched off completely their OM servers. They only have OMI in their production data center management and have been now for several months. So the evolution, we think, is designed to help you smoothly evolve from OM to the bridge at your pace. Once again, there's no force function here. OM will be around for quite a few years, despite what some people would like to tell you if you are connected to certain blogs that are out there. We have no intention of stopping IM for quite a few years. The thing that we're saying, though, of course, is that you're going to be able to use the same collectors. The agents that have been installed on your systems and been in the data centers for years are the same. The ITIL processes, and whether they're ITIL or other types of processes that you use and have implemented for years in your operation centers, are extreme value to you and linked to your people. So there's nothing here that we're breaking with respect to processes. In fact, we think we can encourage you to develop new processes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. And the license entitlement, we believe, is giving you a great journey, a great capability to move from the consulted event performance management to service management. The evolution, we hope we're going to be rendering it somewhat simple for you by learning across the last few years, in particular last year in our invitation program. We built step-by-step guides. We provided to you, as you'll see if you join this program starting the 1st of March, that we built evolution tools, auditing tools that help you to look at what you've done to customize your environment and what you need to do to move to the operations bridge. The value, looking at this kind of evolution, you might be asking yourself, why would I do this? And that's really a prompt to listen to Will's journey. But we've got quite a few other examples, as you can see here, many besides. We have about 50 customers who've done this over the last year already, which are clearly showing that event reductions are quite massive, that the mean time to repair is going down immensely, and that must be an attractive value proposition to you and capable of taking cost out of your own environments. This is what we think those benefits can look like: improved business line revenue, because you're going to be able to profit from the linkage between IT and business services and the infrastructure health of all the components, thereby being able to fix things faster, keeping the services more available, giving better quality of service to your users, at the same time as increasing efficiencies, which takes cost out of operations expenditure, and increasing the visibility to all of your stakeholders by giving the means to report back to the business and to IT executives how well things are being done. So with that, that gives you an idea of the program that actually Will has enjoyed for the last year or so. So I want to now invite Will to come on board and talk to us about his journey. Will?
Great, thanks, Ian. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining again. As Ian mentioned, my name is Will Gillen, and I'm from Fidelity Investments. So just go ahead and click the next slide there, Ian. Great, thanks. So I'm a part of the monitoring and automation team here at Fidelity, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our Operations Bridge experience. First, just kind of set the level here. So a little bit about Fidelity Investments as a company, and this is all taken from the Fidelity public website, so you can see some data here about how many customers we have, how much money we manage, and things like that. Headquartered in Boston, private company. By myself, about 15 years or so working in the IT monitoring space, mostly working with HP tools, and some of you may have ran into me at HP Discover, doing some presentations over the past however many years, 10 years or so. Next slide, please. I work in the asset management division of Fidelity Investments. This is where so basically some information here about asset management division, some more financial information pulled off the Fidelity website. And basically what our group does is we provide the technology solutions that support the asset management division. And so if you think about it from, not from the front end space, Fidelity.com, things like that, it's more the back end traders, portfolio managers, people like that, the investment type professionals. So we provide the technology that supports those folks. So needless to say, you can see here some of the financial information. The technology plays a very critical role to support this. Next slide, please. A little overview here of kind of our infrastructure. So we've got about 150 A-rated applications that we support, and what that means, A-rated is how we rank our applications based on criticality. So that would be the applications that can not have any downtime. There's about maybe over 1,000 total applications that we support. That includes 2,000 servers, 300 network devices, roughly. We have a command center, so our support center has a global support presence between U.S. and India. There's 18 operators that work in the command center. They are spread across the U.S. and India, and then it's 24/7 coverage. They do a lot of great work over there. They handle about 20,000 events per month. So that's taking in events, processing them, escalating, doing certain things depending on how the events look. I'm going to talk a little bit about mean time to repair later on, but just kind of one thing to mention here is that our current look at MTTR is 2 hours and 51 minutes. That's without escalation, and basically that means if it's an event comes in and then the operators can determine right away who gets that event, or if there's any automation that happens, the event or the incident will get to that group and it's right away. We jump to about 4 hours and 12 minutes if there is some escalation required, meaning the person who's on call maybe doesn't get the ticket right away, or it goes to the wrong group, things like that. So that's just one of those things. MTTR is a KPI we're really looking at in 2015 to improve on, just because it wasn't really something that we looked at until recently. So we can see the value there. We need to work on that, and that's based on some best practices and enhancements. We're going to be working on that in 2015. From a monitoring team point of view, we've got 9 engineers, again, deployed between U.S. and India. We have a 24/7 on-call coverage. We handle about 115 service requests per month, and overall we have about 80,000 monitors deployed in our environment. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a little bit about our growth. So from an operations point of view, over the past 10 years or so, we started out 24/7 coverage, mainly in the New England area. So go Patriots for those New England fans. 2011 brought us, we brought in the technology to create an automation strategy here, and the idea here is, we want to be able to automate things that we were doing from a manual basis from a day-to-day point of view. And the other thing we want to do is to start thinking about broadening our support globally, because as the asset management space grew, we need to support that from a multiple time zone point of view. So 2012, the automation strategy was put into production. So we do things here when we talk about automation, like alert remediation or automating simple, repeatable tasks. And with that, we use HPO, operations orchestration. That's our main automation tool. And then once we hit 2012, 2013, we grew to 8 time zones under support. And we also introduced a first-level support program in the command center. So what this does, it allows our operators to be that first line of defense and potentially fix issues before they get escalated. So there's some metrics later on that I'm going to show you, talk about this program in detail. Next slide, please. There's a little slide about our monitoring architecture. So as you can see, on the left-hand side, we've got all the data collectors that everybody knows and loves. With that, we feed this data into BSM. And here we have OMI for our events. The way it stands today is our events feed through OMI, and then they go to our homegrown event management system. That's the operators can see that. That's their console that they look at on a day-to-day basis. It's been around for a long time, and it's pretty well embedded into our organization. We take this data and we feed into BSM. We have a SHA. We started to look at a little bit of that stuff for the anomaly detection. And then, of course, within this, we have monitoring automation. I'll talk a little bit about that later. And then there's some outputs here, right? Once we get the data into OMI, you can have dashboards and reporting. And then we can also feed this data, and we synchronize our data through ECMDB, and then we can go outside of this to third party. We can go to tools like Service Manager or ServiceNow and XMatters for our escalations. Next slide, please. Here's a shot at our roadmap. So this is what we're calling our house. So we're building a house from a monitoring roadmap point of view. So if it starts at the infrastructure, we're building our foundation. We've got our servers, network, storage, database, desktop. With that, then we build on top of that, where you can layer on our application monitoring with dashboards and modeling. We can do batch monitoring. We can do application dependency, data quality checks. We want to be able to do more in the end user experience space with synthetic and passive monitoring. And then on top of that, we have our roof. So this is where we're actually taking all of those foundational monitors and application monitors and end user experience and building on that, looking at it as a whole to get that true end-to-end so we can have these advanced features like correlation, anomaly detection, and then eventually ops analytics is someplace we want to get to with the big data analytics and root cause analysis. So that's our roadmap right here. Next slide, please, Ian. Okay, our journey to OpsBridge. So the way it was before, so we're going back here about maybe 3 years ago, we had all of our monitoring from an infrastructure point of view was done with OM agents. And actually 40% of our incidents from an on-call point of view from the monitoring team were related to agent health issues. So whether as an agent had to be restarted or wasn't processing events or whatever. So we had to restart those things quite a bit. That was 40%. It was a centrally managed monitoring environment. So 60% of the requests that we got, service requests came in. There were very simple changes, threshold changes, disables, enables, things like that. Some support groups had deployed their own monitoring tools, so they went on their own and did, wrote their own scripts. So that was a problem. Everything was manual. We had no automation. Operators manually opened tickets. It was very time consuming. So there's a lot of room here for improvement. So based on that, now what we've done, we've converted about 95% of our agent-based monitors to SiteScope. And with that came some flexibility, right? So we've implemented a self-service monitoring model. So app support teams can actually go into SiteScope on their own, based on their security and their level of access. They can create their own monitors. However, they, as the app experts, go in there, create the monitors that they need to create, and then configure them however they need to create them. Well, we consolidate any kind of those rogue monitoring scripts into SiteScope, so we were able to put all of that stuff into SiteScope. As I mentioned before, automation was a big driver for us in 2013, 2014. So right now, at the close of 2014, we averaged about 600 man-hours saved through OO workflows. So that was pretty significant savings for us. We also automatically open 80% of the high severity incidents tickets that we get. Lower severities were at 100%, so we automate all that stuff. So it helps save time for our operators. And then with that, the operators now have time, as I mentioned, for the first level support program. They can perform tasks on common incidents accounting for about 150 man-hours saved. So this is level 2 application support type hours that are being saved. What's next? So what we have coming up now, we want to get a better understanding of what is being monitored and what's missing. So what we're doing is we look at our foundational monitoring that we have in place. We're doing audits and certifications through that. So within each product line, we're going to be going through each one, auditing them, making sure that we're not missing anything, if there's any gaps. And then once we sign off on that, they get the stamp, they get certified, and then we move on, and we can do some more enhancements through that. We're making a commitment here to deploy monitoring as part of the software development lifecycle. So as an application comes online, we're hoping to get into that process before it goes live. So we want to be as part of the development lifecycle. So as developers are creating applications, they can put hooks into their application so that we can monitor it better. We want to implement monitoring enhancements, so anomaly detection, event correlation. We need to reduce false positives, mean time to repair, and more importantly, we need to define a systematic way to capture these. So right now, the way that we capture these metrics, it's pretty manual, and we don't have a very good way to report on it, so we need to work on that. We want to create a governance model and a training plan for our self-service monitoring and automation product. So as it is with SiteScope and with OO, it's a self-service model. We need to make sure that we've got our checks and balances in place to make sure that monitors are getting created efficiently. They're not causing any problems downstream for any other users. Same goes for the automation space. We need to be able to understand what flows people are creating, if there's any kind of best practices that they need to follow. So we're going to be deploying a training plan and a governance model going forward. And then finally, we've got a big data analytics POC coming up this year. So this is the Ops Analytics tool that we're going to start looking at. Next slide, please, Ian. How do we measure success? So these metrics here that you're looking at, these are taken over the past 2 years, the before and after, or the before and now look, and these are monthly data metrics. So you can see quite a change in our self-service monitoring hits. So we're up to 70,000 a month now. Even logins, self-service logins have almost doubled, and our incident counts have gone down a little bit. So we're proud about that. We're happy about that. And then our command center first-level support hours have gone up too. So this is all kind of data that's feeding all the stuff that I talked about before. So some of the ways that we can measure success going forward, ROI based on hours saved. That's easy to do. We can do that today. OO has that built into the tool. We can pull that data out. First-level support hours, we track all that stuff. It's all fairly automated. We can capture all that information. Overall incident counts, we capture all that. That's the easy stuff. Mean time to repair, this is a little bit trickier because it's, the definition of MTTR sometimes it depends on who you ask. But we're working through that stuff, so we're trying to figure out a way to report on that on a regular basis systematically. And then finally, the real kind of the golden ticket here is we want to be able to capture issues before they become high impact incidents. So this one's a little bit tricky for us to gauge on how do we measure it and how do we capture it in a way and report on it systematically where we don't have to evaluate every ticket one by one and say, yes, this caught an issue that potentially saved an issue from happening later on. So that's something that we need to work on. And next slide, please. And features and benefits. So monitoring automation. So this is our migration. So we still have a handful of OM agents. So this is just based on some requirements that we have that need to report. So rather than having a supported OM Linux environment, we have these agents that will report directly into OMI and be managed through monitoring automation. So we've got our policies all deployable and managed through MA. And within the next few months, we should have our legacy OM server retired. Dashboards, so BSM, of course, has a lot of dashboards use cases. We need to increase our adoption in that space. Support teams and the operators can leverage these things as we see fit, but like I said, we need to do some more marketing and selling on those and try to get people more used to using them. UCMDB, so we sync data today from our UCMDB into our RTSM. The discovery, what happens is the discovery runs across the environment, and we have what we call fingerprinting. So if I own an application, I can define what that fingerprint is, or whether it's an executable or a DLL or some jar file that I need that says, okay, this application, if it's running on this server, that's my fingerprint. And then it will scan at the environment. So that way we can store that into our CMDB and say, okay, these servers run this application. And finally, correlation. So currently we use stream-based correlation for a few different use cases, whether it's a heartbeat, like a missing event, or any kind of identical event that we just want to reduce incident volume. So that's a very limited use case here. We need to work with the app support teams and try to get some more topology-based and expand our stream-based correlations. And I think that's it. Ian, back to you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Will. That was great. A lot of information. And what we're going to do now is actually, I think we should be firing up a poll at this point. If Rocky or Stephanie, you have that poll.
Take this for you.
Thank you.
And here's the polling question for you to check off. If, like Fidelity, you are using HP Operations Manager, are you ready to begin planning your journey to an HP OpsBridge target? So please select one of these options that are listed here, and not using Operations Manager and going to OpsBridge in the next year, 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years or longer, and we'll generate the results here in just a second. And sorry I came on late, but I wanted to add, Will, that I am one of your customers. My 401k process goes through Fidelity, and I'm one of these guys that checks on a regular basis almost every day, and I can tell you that you guys are always up and running.
Wow.
So I appreciate that.
Good to hear.
Got a happy customer, Will.
Yeah. And and I'm at that age where the 401k is getting to the point, well, I may be using it soon. So we should be getting the results here in just a second. Give everyone a chance to participate. This is Ian, this is pretty exciting news. We've been wanting to see where the OpsBridge was going, and Operations Manager. I know one of the questions that was there was, is Operations Manager being turned off? And the answer, as you declared, is no, it's still going to be running for a number of years. So those customers that still have it, they're still supported, and still have years of life with Operations Manager if that's all they want to use. But to the point is getting it to the next stage. So here's
the evolution is meant to be at people's own pace, right? As I said, there's no force function here, and people can plan this out. That's what we're inviting them to do, is plan it out.
Right.
But there's no rush.
But and take advantage of all the new functionality that exists. So
correct.
Here's the results of the poll. So it looks like about 17% are not using Operations Manager today. So we're talking to an audience that may be relevant to learn where it's going in our space that's been around for 20 years. Are they planning to move? 43% plan on moving into the OpsBridge here in the next year. So 43%. That's a great number. 1 to 2 years is about 21%. 2 to 3 years is 11%, and some will be longer. But I think it's more of an awareness thing. I think once people realize the capability here and the automation, to solve problems that they've been doing manually, this would be great. Okay, on with the presentation.
There was a second question, wasn't there?
Was there? Okay. You're right, there is. Which would be your primary targets to justify this journey? And the options are for you here is reduction of event volumes to focus on the right issues, generate only the right tickets to be managed, end-to-end single pane of glass view of how IT events impact, optimization of the IT resources you already have to improve utilization, and to the final question or option is to improve your operations in the next year. So those are all great reasons for taking the next step. And again, Ian, like yourself, I've been doing this for over 20 years in the operations and network management space, and we've seen that for a lot of customers.
I think we both remember when Node Manager came out in 1990. That's when all this started, right?
Right.
Good old days of SNMP.
Created many careers. So we should just be almost done with this polling question, so we can get back to the results and get back to the presentation. So feel free to ask questions. What we'll try to do is answer them online. If we can't get to them all, we'll be recording the session with the answer. So Here's the results from our quick poll, and it looks like 40% of the justification for moving into the OpsBridge is end-to-end single pane of glass view, which has always been important in our space. Everyone's always wanted that single pane of glass, and I think it's now evolved to a point that's very dynamic from an app perspective through infrastructure. So, yeah, I think
maybe as I finish the next section, we'll ask Will how important that's been to him.
That's good, yeah. And the next highest percentage was to improve our operations in the next year. So, some tremendous value coming out of this. Okay.
All right. Okay, so I'll move on. Thank you, Rocky, for animating that, and thank you, everyone, for your responses. So what we're going to do now is jump in before we get to the Q&A, where I can talk with Will and some other experts who are on this call today about the OpsBridge and about the journey. Feel free to ask those questions, put them into the question bar. So I'm going to run you through quickly here what is the target that we're going for, and especially some of the exciting news concerning the latest version of OperationsBridge, which we have just introduced. So first of all, let's set the scene. What are we doing? What is shaping our focus, and what are we hearing from customers? So you just saw a quick title indicating that we see that everyone's really going heads down to develop new apps. Some of those apps come out practically every hour, every hour, every day, every week. I'm sure you're seeing some of that in your own environments. And some of the challenges that those kind of characteristics represent are that people are using different devices to get to those apps. They might be consuming essentially the same business service, particularly from a back-end perspective, but it can be harder and harder now to know from which device they're doing it, and therefore which technologies they're invoking, even if the business service is the same. We're still faced with the same kind of requirements from the business: stability, resiliency, give me the performance I need, but also people now want agility. They want new apps being rolled out faster. So any degree of app service degradation, the inefficiencies that might be in our operations, and slowness, latency in IT operations can cause any one of these failures. The customers would turn and go and consume somebody else's business service. Ops costs start to climb, and that we have revenues going down. So those are obviously not acceptable, especially as business goes digital and everything goes online, and we have all those different users using different devices. So we need to be able to connect business and IT performance right down to the humblest IT CPU or fan and everything in between that might impact the business. We ought to be able to build an end-to-end picture. And I've just seen from you in the polling question that that's important to you. Predict issues. We heard Will say as one of his last closing points that you need to get to a point where they can see ahead of time and try and get ahead of time. And I'm happy to say that in the OpsBridge, there's some people who have been using predictive capabilities and have gained hours, minutes and hours ahead of a major service disruption. And that automation, how important has that been to Will? I'm sure it's very important to you. The special report at the bottom here is a Gartner report where they're clearly showing in their analysis and discussions with customers that everyone's challenged to take this services approach. So we believe that the bridge can help. We believe that the bridge approach can help you to focus on IT service delivery, to shape revenue growth, to keep those customer experiences radically great, and to be more agile. And so we defined a message for that, which we call Sense, Analyze, and Adapt. I'm going to walk you through very quickly here some of the aspects of how we believe the bridge does this. First of all, Sense, so capturing the user experience and then using those metrics is something I think everyone, and Will mentioned that he's doing that more and more, wants to do, either by synthetic or real probing. We need to be able to monitor and do collection from the tools that you already have, as well as the new tools that are coming out, and bring that information to one spot so that we can analyze it. Analysis is correlation. Analysis is using the data to see what's impacting what. Analysis is using stochastic methods, and we'll see more and more how we marry OperationsBridge to analytics capabilities, such as operations analytics, which is becoming more and more important these days. so that we can calculate root cause, or we can observe patterns and use the benefit of predictive operations. And we need to adapt. We see how Will has talked about the benefits to their organization, to his organization, of using automated tasks to remove time from manual repetitive things, but also try and remove some of the manual errors that occur because people are simply overloaded. So be more accurate and get rid of some of those. Create ways in which systems can be more resilient, right? So using operations bridge for all those dimensions, sense, analyze, and adapt. Some people ask me, what do you mean by an operations bridge? So I'm just going to show you a couple of slides that we use today to explain it. No one's saying that you need to rip and replace your tools. You've spent a lot of time and money getting them up into your data centers. They come with some of the best of breed tools and technologies that you buy, of course. And so these are still valid to you. And in some of our surveys we've done over the last 3 or 4 months, we see that on average people are using between 8 to 15 tools, but there are still some people around using even more. It must be pretty hard to build an end-to-end picture when you're using that many tools. So management is siloed, and the picture, if anyone does build it, it's probably in their mind. And to do it, to build that picture, they typically swivel. They've got to use this tool to see what's happening, then move to this tool to see what's happening, which creates latency. And it means that operations staff are typically probably working on symptoms. There's too many people questioning themselves on, is it an app problem, DB problem, net problem, etc. It takes too long to do the triage. The net is that it's hard to consolidate. It's hard to get the performance data to see what's happening now and drive planning. And you get all these effects on the right-hand side, right? Too many calls, too many tickets open, too much time spent, poor planning, monitoring duplication. So a lot of those aspects. The bridge is doing discovery using the collectors, some of which we'll mention, agents and SiteScope, but also through potentially dedicated engines like UD, Universal Discovery, that are doing spiral discovery and keeping the picture of your IT up to date in the runtime service model. And that's continuous discovery. It's another dimension of automation that we provide inside the bridge. When we do it, we then can apply our analytics engine, our correlation, be it stream-based, be it topology-based, or both, to find the wheat from the chaff, right? So to look at which are the probable symptoms and then present to an operator what is likely to be the most probable cause based on correlating events and metrics to the topology, which is kept up to date by that discovery. So if we come back to our little diagram here, then what happens is we take information from those collectors, including the tools you're using today. No one's saying you get rid of them. What we're saying is federate them, integrate to them, and we provide more and more integrations. I'll come back to that in a minute. And we connect to those tools so that that notion of siloed management goes away, and we bring the fault and performance information to one place so that we can see how any particular fault is likely to potentially impact business. It means that we do away with the swivel chair management because everyone can share the common view of IT reality across different interfaces, be they mobile, be they dashboards that Will mentioned. And they might be available on mobile devices using Android or iOS. It means that the operations staff work less on symptoms because we found where the issue is. We can find faster where the root cause is. And this is how you drive down the MTTR, the mean time to repair, because we can show what is the most probable root cause. Now, there might be more than one root cause that is shown. And of course, what we should be doing is spending time on the root cause that's having the most potential business impact. So that's the next aspect of our modeling that helps us then to focus on the right performance issues, to make sure the right tickets are opened, and then govern those aspects of automation that are so valuable to Will, and I think are probably are to you as well. So last part of what we're going to talk about today is, so what's new? What's in this new version 10 that we brought out? So first and foremost, nice, beautiful, redesigned, sexy dashboards using HTML5. At last, our GUI is now really pretty, and there's some new things like what we're showing here, KPI over time, which gives us an instant picture of how are our apps doing, and different characteristics of the apps like response time, like performance, like events, and then they show that over time, where of course the time base in this matrix view here, it may be days, maybe weeks, maybe hours, depends on what you want to look at. So you get a quick view of what's happening now and what's presenting problems over time. Averaged out into figures like we're showing here, 57.9, and then averaged out in terms of events shown in the radar, etc. We've also re-engineered some of the navigation. Sometimes going from the event down to the solving of that event. In Will's case, he mentioned that was 2 hours and so many minutes. What we've done here is to re-engineer all of our tools so that the event to closure is a lot simpler from the tool perspective. So navigation has been accelerated, etc. So let's move on and talk about some more aspects of what we've done with version 10. First, we've broadened the scope because we know you have choice. You will choose, your developers will choose what they want to choose depending on the device they want to render the service on, and depending on maybe the context of the link between the user and the back-end systems. Given all of those choices, it is obvious, or hopefully it is to you, that the operations bridge needs to be able to support all of those. So we support them by linking to the tools that you might be using, Nagios or IBM or Microsoft SCOM, as well as providing the means to do deep analysis of the individual technologies themselves. So these are provided integrations. We've multiplied these by 3 since the last version of BSM. OMI 10 now supports well over 100 different types of integration covering domains such as infrastructure, apps, big data, cloud, and many others. And the value of that, I hope you can see, is that the automated discovery I mentioned is, of course, improve per management pipe, per technology that we're connecting to. We can improve the discovery, populate the picture, the end-to-end picture that everyone's enjoying. Monitoring automation that Will mentioned is enhanced since we apply best practice policies to each of these domains. And each management pipe that we provide enhances the bridge by providing out-of-the-box correlation rules for TBEC, which are domain-specific, obviously. So correlation rules that you can use to condition your own environment, which are specific to each domain. And SHR, so the reports that you are probably doing, if you've moved to SHR, everyone does reporting, and SHR is our preferred platform to do that. Then we provide well over 200 reports, enriching the operations bridge again. But we haven't stopped there. We've introduced some new sensors. We have a very lightweight sensor, which is at the moment supplied with VPV. The agents, of course, are still the same, trusted operations agents that have been in the data centers for many years. And we also have then support for site scope, as well as mentioned already. But we brought something out which is new here too, to simplify the way in which you build the model. So we linked to universal discovery, as I showed in the previous slide, and now we can simplify the way in which the model is built, either by linking to that kind of engine, or by using a simple service modeler, which allows you to very quickly just identify a particular service by defining which CIs, which applications, and which resources are being discovered, and do that model very, very quickly without necessarily having to spend too much time on doing your RTSM as you get started. In terms of analysis, we've enriched Operations Bridge by adding log file management and by adding extra correlation rules, as I mentioned earlier on, and by adding the predictive analytics capability. So when you buy today Operations Bridge, you can get direct access to a lot of analytics capabilities with the OpsBridge. Some of the first paths on the way to full operational analytics, which is a marriage between bridge, event management, and the capability of doing big data analytics. Another thing that we've done is to include something that Will mentioned is built into operations orchestration. Now built into the operations bridge is the OMI return on investment dashboard. This is looking at how well you're doing at closing events, how well you're doing at qualifying things, a very exciting way in which you can start to report back to your management on the improvements that you're getting from adoption of the actual bridge. We also obviously provide analytics in the context of reports which are provided by SHR, providing information concerning how well you've been doing so far, and providing some level of forecasting to help you understand how you might optimize your resource allocations. So we provide now full monitoring automation in OpsBridge. Previously we had monitoring automation for Compact, which was a separate product, is now completely bundled in. As I mentioned, we are providing operations orchestration directly in the operations bridge. That gives you access to something like 5,000 different runbooks for remediation of the scaling. And something new we've brought into MI10 is to help people define new processes or to get more out of the tool. It's called the exploration map. Helps people to see what have they done so far with the tool and what might they do next. So this is kind of a best practice and a technology map which helps people to see what next steps they might take with the tool. Now, Will's already talked about some of the advantages that he's gaining. We are happy to show you some of the other references which we have here and some very exciting conclusions from some of these implementations of the OpsBridge that you can see. I won't read them out, you can read them for yourselves. Our flagship is our friends at Vodafone in Ireland, who implemented the operations bridge a while ago and were able to find over 300% return on investment to deploy the OpsBridge and BSM in their first year. So tremendous savings coming from people like Interjet, from Saudi Electric, from Tributurk, and many more that I don't have time to mention. Just want to point you to also some more information that we're providing now on our external web page. We have used TechValidate to interview quite a few customers, and you can see that a lot of people are already on their journey to the OpsBridge, and you can see some of their comments back that TechValidate have gathered and brought to their portal to talk about and show you the advantages of the adoption. So with that, we reach the last poll. So Rocky, I'm going to turn it back to you for the last poll, and then we'll take questions.
Sure. Oh, that'd be great. Great stuff. So our quick poll here at the end is, do you estimate that adoption of the OpsBridge can lead you to reduction in operations cost by 10%, 10 to 33, 33 to 60, or greater? So let's give our folks a few minutes to answer that question, and we'll come back with the result.
I can't make any promises, but you just saw the names of quite a few customers who are already given their answers. Incidentally, whilst you're just doing your responses there, a lot of those metrics which you saw, which we're starting to focus on, were their own measurements. So we can actually help you, if you need help, to calculate the return on investment. You've seen the built-in tool, but we also have professional services capabilities to be able to audit your environment and help you to measure and capture the right information on your journey. And I can't underline enough how important it is for you as you start your journey to capture those metrics of your environment now. If you don't, then of course it'd be a lot harder for you to be able to show the before picture that Will showed and then justify some of the investments that you might need to make in terms of time, in terms of tools, and in terms of processes that you want to implement.
And here we go. So the percentages of what do you think will reduce in operations cost by the big answer is 10 to 33%, which is 50% of the folks on the call.
Okay.
28% think it's going to be at least 10%, and 14% of the folks said that they hope to improve by 33 to 60%. And obviously, we got those very optimistic 8% that think they can get greater than 60% improvement by adopting to the operations. So that's great.
That's great, yeah. Last question. I think there was one last question. Yeah.
Yep, here it is. So, which of the new features in OpsBridge version 10 would have the biggest impact on your decision to start your journey? A single server Postgres SQL embedded database? Wow, that'd be great. Lightweight.
Well, that is in the product actually, Rocky. I didn't
What's that?
mention that as I was going through, did I? That's actually a key feature of OMI 10 is now you can install OMI on a single server, and when you do that, you can use the Postgres database that's included.
Goodbye, Oracle. Lightweight with faster, simpler modeling, no need for BSM.
Yep.
100+ integration.
Separate these days from
Okay.
BSM. You don't need BSM. That's why you can install it on a single server. You don't have to use a BSM platform now with AMI.
Okay, great. 100+ integrations, OOTB. So is that the operations orchestration? Okay.
Yes,
Correlations, rules, and reports.
Yep.
Cool.
Right.
Log intelligence and predictive analysis and analytics included. And the last one is monitoring and runbook automation with HPOO included. So, boy, a lot of things packed into this version.
Isn't it a great product these days, right? The solution, the OpsBridge solution, is now full to the brim.
Well, that's key. I mean, because we're leveraging these technologies separately by the integrations and then forwarding them to, service management for tickets and these kind of things, and having, I think automation is key. Having the automation.
Automation is key. I mean, Will said that, and I hear it all the time from our customers, as well as from the analysts too.
So here's the results of what people think are the biggest impact for their journey, and it's close. 29% like the lightweight, simpler modeling, no need for BSM, and the complexity there. 19% are looking forward to monitoring and the runbook automation. So again, automation, making it simple. I would have thought the Postgres SQL would have been a bigger percentage because of the cost of Oracle, but I guess if you're using SQL, it's not as big a deal. But for those Oracle customers, this is a big thing.
We think that the OMI is now OMI version 10 as part of the operations. Bridge can now be installed on its server all by itself with Postgres, which does bring the cost down and means deployment can be so much simpler and faster. We've actually got a virtual appliance which can be loaded in 30 minutes, which is amazing. And we think that opens the door to lots of people who are more in the commercial space, small and medium businesses. But actually, those of you who are on the call with us on the 17th of December with Jay Rooney from Van City, he loves, well, that's a biggish company, he loves the idea of a single server because in many large organizations it takes them months to get the hardware to set up the management servers. It can take them ages to deploy it because, finance and ordering and what have you. So having it on a single server actually helps everybody.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, thank you, Rocky, for doing that. And we'll reach now the end of our webinar. I think we've just got one or two things to say. First, more information in the deck, which you'll be, I think, able to access. Here's some live links. So hp.com, go, OMI is where to go, or go OpsBridge. For a lot of the new white papers, videos, demos, webinars like this one and others too, the TechValidate customer quotes I mentioned to you. And if you're interested in the program, the Evolution program, which kicks off March the 1st, then send an email to this address here. Join us to hear about Schlumberger's join, just like Will's journey, and that's on the March 24th. So hand it back to you, Rocky, to close out and take the questions, which I hope are in the question bar.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. We've got a number of questions. And to tie along with this webinar that you've heard today, in the Midwest at least, I'm running a road show on the BSM updates that did come out of Barcelona. So the OpsBridge is definitely a big topic there. We'll be able to dive in further than what you've got today and maybe talk to customer experiences regarding that. So there's a number of cities you can see listed. I think we're planning also to do one in Milwaukee. Still waiting on getting a post for Michigan. So if anyone's in the Michigan is on this call, all we're looking for is a room for about 30 people to host the event. We'll take care of the rest. And we started last year, the end of last year, we took over the APM practitioner forum call. So it's basically a call where you can ask questions. There'll be some HP folks on the line that are familiar with the products, and we just have a dialogue for about an hour to talk about your experiences. So you'll find all that on the BSM SIG user group, which there's a link there below. Next slide. That may be the last slide. So we've got a couple of questions, but make sure that when you're done with the this event that you fill out the survey, and if there's things that you'd like to see in the near future, to let us know. But we've been answering some of them, but there's a couple of questions that I can ask right now. So let's see. And wind up here. Here we go. Okay, so I guess one of the questions was, there's a simple one. Any customers running Operations Bridge in Sweden? So
Oh, gosh.
I'm sure there is, but...
if I say NNIT, if I say KMD, if I say Telenor, I know some of those are Danish. I'm not quite sure if they're present too in Sweden. I'd certainly like to refer you to one of my colleagues called Steen Bernstedt. Steen is a pre-sales guy in HP. So yeah, I know there are, and quite a few of them were with me last week in an event in Copenhagen, which was kind of a mini HP Discover. There's about 150 people attended that event last week, and some of those people are users of OM and OMI. If you want exact customer names, I'll have to refer you back to the Swedish team, of course.
Great. Yeah, Sweden's from a Vivit perspective also. It's a growing, very positive chapter. One of our board members is from that chapter as well, so very active.
Okay.
Here's a question around performance insight reports. So that's been around forever. And does the entitlement cover any requirements to convert them to SHR?
Okay, yes, the entitlement program, which once again, everyone, starts on March the 1st. But in actual fact, PI to SHR migration is something which has been running for a while. But in the entitlement program, yes, you'll be entitled one-on-one for licenses converted from PI to SHR. Now, the question says about reports. So, you know, people did a lot to customize reports. So it depends what you've done with the reports that were provided with PI. Practically all those standard reports have been recreated inside SHR, but you may have customized them quite heavily. So it does depend in actual fact to see whether they are directly swappable. So entitlement, definitely yes. The actual report, can it be migrated? That depends what's inside it. If you've used PI for a lot of network reporting, then that's best done using the iSpy reporting tool, which is much more tuned for the kinds of things you want to see in a network report than what you would find in SHR. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh, great, thank you, Ian. You know, I've got one here that was answered, but I just want to bring it up again. What does MA stand for? So monitoring automation, is that some OO connection into OMI?
No, it is not. Monitoring automation is standard in OMI and has been since, I think, 9.20, so a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And quite simply put, monitoring automation is something which detects a new instance of an object in the RTSM. Might be a server, might be a DB, an Oracle database. And when it detects that new instance, then it has the details in the RTSM to then automate the task of deploying the best practice policies that you've predefined straight to the target object and make sure that it's activated. So the purpose of MA is A, to take away the repetitive task of managing everything, 2, to make sure that nothing's ever forgotten. That was a survey result we saw again, that people said to us when we surveyed them that it takes them between 1 week to 3 months before all of their objects are actually monitored. And I think we've seen horror stories in the press where, you know, quite simply things have not been monitored. They've been lost, they've been forgotten. So that's what monitoring automation is. And it does apply to composite apps too. You can define a set of apps chained together as a configuration, which is a web server farm, load balancers, intermediate app, backend database. Those too can be detected as a composite application deployment, and then all the monitoring required deployed out to each of the objects necessary. So that's what MA is, and it doesn't need operations orchestration.
Got one last one because I think you've answered them all online that we can answer, at least at this point. And once the recording comes out, we'll have all the questions answered, hopefully. But how does event, knowing only the name, differentiate between the environments? You say you use attributes, but event doesn't access those attributes, or can it? I don't know if that's clear enough for you.
Bit of a technical question. So we do have on the line today one of our product experts who probably understands the question better than I do. So I'll ask Volker if he can chip in and answer that.
It may have been something they were referring to Will about his environment.
Oh, I was going to ask if there are any questions to Will, but yeah, Will, do you have any comments concerning that question?
How does events, knowing only the name, differentiate between the environments? You say you use attributes, but events don't access these attributes, or can they, or can it? May not be clear enough.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the question means.
Okay, no problem.
Volker, any insight from your perspective?
So I think, at this point, we'll have to finish the rest and after the fact, and we're way over time, so I'm going to thank everyone that's still stuck around for this event. But again, look forward to the road show, at least in the Midwest. There may be other cities down the road. And I want to thank Ian and Will for this webinar, and look forward
to hearing
more about
being
VSM.
there and giving us the benefit of the insight to your installation.
That is
and
key
thank
to
you
the
to Volker as well for being there to answer the questions. And thanks to you, Rocky and Stephanie.
No problem. Thank you, and have a good day, everyone. With that, we will close the webinar.
Thank you.